everyone. Welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. I'm your host, Jay Heilman. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, I have the privilege and honor a lot of the time to be joined by filmmakers, actors, and crew from a lot of amazing films that are coming out. And there's a film coming out this Thanksgiving Day weekend, and it's a historical piece. It's a fantastic and incredibly moving film. It's called Bonhoeffer, and I am fortunate to be joined today by director and screenplay writer for the film, Todd Komarnicki. Todd, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to see you. Thank you for taking time to chat about something that's so dear to my heart.
Yeah, I'm excited about this movie. My wife and I got a chance to sit down and watch it. And, for those who are not familiar with the Bonhoeffer film, what can you tell us about this film?
Well, if you don't know this man, you will be gripped by the story of his singular courage. It's essentially one man against the devil. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was the first and one of the few pastors to speak out against Adolf Hitler's rise to power in Germany. As early as 1933, he recognized that Hitler was not representing Germany, he was representing himself with a profound level of narcissism that was murderous. And Dietrich put himself in front of the train. He's similar to that famous photograph from Tiananmen Square years ago where the individual stood and blocked the tank from going forward. Bonhoeffer was that kind of man. And then if you're familiar with Bonhoeffer, you're going to get to see many sides of how the prism of his life reflected light that may not have been known heretofore. His time in Harlem is deeply formative, really where he meets Jesus and where he discovers the difference between an intellectual faith and a living relationship faith filled with the Spirit. And he also saw when he was in Harlem the racism that was affecting the Black Americans. His roommate was Frank Fisher, who was from Harlem, and he was able to see behind the curtain of what was happening in America at that time, so that when he went to Germany and he saw the Jews being carved out by Hitler, he recognized it immediately. The rest of Germany, such a homogenous society, they listened to the state. They appreciated the rise of German strength after being so crushed in World War I, that they weren't taking the time to notice that Hitler was othering the Jews. But Dietrich noticed. And central to Dietrich's faith was he always said that Jesus was a man for others. He was there for others. And that inspired the kind of faith Dietrich lived his life with. He was always thinking about the others and how can we help? How can we stand in the way? How can we be the catcher in the rye?
Right. And one thing I noticed about the film is, his character is portrayed as, somebody that's not only wanting to stand up against Hitler and the Nazi regime, but really have his church, have the German church stand up. And it was an incredible story as it unfolded on there. I liked how you were able to implement that part of the story there too. And now, as far as screenwriting goes, there's so many different projects that you can choose to be a part of and like kind of make into a film. What was your inspiration in doing a screenplay on his story and bringing his story to the screen?
Well, you must know the famous quote, "How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans." So this falls under that category. I was pursued. I was tracked down by the story. I said no to writing it in the beginning. I said no for a year and a half to directing it. But God wasn't really interested in my no because he had a yes in front of this story. And so it was really, I don't know if you know the poem, The Hound of Heaven, but it was being pursued and being told, listen, this is what your energy needs to be applied to. I know you have these other things. I know you think they're important. And I think they're important too, God said, but not as important as this. So pay attention. And he got me. He got me to sit down and take pen to paper. And then once I delved into the man that Bonhoeffer was, how relatable he was, how much I wanted to be his friend. I mean, he was so charismatic. and funny and athletic and prickly and cocky and loving and warm and a great family member and a loyal friend. He was a type of guy that I easily would have gravitated towards if I'd ever met him anyway. But now I was getting to walk with him side by side down the road of telling the story. So he gripped me. He still has a hold of me. And I love drawing people to his story, because what you encounter when you meet Dietrich, first thing you encounter is the aroma of Christ. The second thing you encounter is a deep and abiding authenticity around what it is to believe. I describe Dietrich as a Garden of Gethsemane Christian. He really leaned into the fact that our Savior, on the eve of doing the very thing that he'd been set up to do since the beginning of time, in the garden said, if this cup could pass from me, but not my will, your will. I know that the beginning of my faith in my 20s was steeped in that, because I really struggled to believe that the center of our faith and our loving God, as a man, wanted to slip out the side door. Wow. Like, I can really relate to that, because I want to slip out the side door all the time. But the lesson, and I know what it says, Jesus being fully human and he was tempted in all ways. It's not the temptation to slip out the door that's the sin. It's the slipping out the door. And so the answer to these questions in our own faith, is not my will, your will, because God's will is the better way. And of course, as painful as it was for Jesus, the man, to go have to die on that cross, it was the better way, because it was the defeat of death for all time, and it was the better way for all eternity and for everybody. God always sees the better way. And I love about Dietrich that even when he wrestled and he said to God, I don't think this is the better way, or why are we not winning? Why was it not enough that I called out the Nazis in church? Why have people continued to follow Hitler? That he still said, okay, I'm not going to turn my back. I'm not going to take the chance to escape to New York. I'm not going to take the chance, which he was offered late in his life, to escape with the German guard and disappear. No, he walked all the way to the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
He said again and again, not my will, your will. And when people see that, I think what they will see is, oh my goodness, that's exactly what it is for me and my faith and to be alive. And the joy is always in the difficult thing being overcome, but none of us want the difficult thing.
Yeah, and this, you had an incredible cast for this film. I mean, you worked, Jonas Dassler, who plays Dietrich in this film, was incredible in this role. What was it like working with him and the cast and crew for this film?
I really wanted to have only German actors for the lead roles, because I'm so tired of period pieces that feel unreal, because all the Germans are speaking with posh British accents, because they get all the great British actors to play the roles. I was like, I'm not going to do that. It's a German story, and if it's going to be in English, they have to have German accented English. So I committed to hiring German actors. Then God just put this cast together for me. The Jonas story was, I wrote to a friend, a German filmmaker friend named Emily Atef, and she was my only contact in the German film world at all. And I said, could you recommend a list of actors, the best actors from 25 to 35? And she wrote back, Jonas Dassler. And I wrote back, well, that's awesome. I'll check out his work, but I need a list. And she said, he is the list. They don't know each other. This was just an artistic opinion that she had. And guess what? You've seen the movie, he is the list. This kid is incredible. He's been working on stage since he's 15, nonstop. And he comes in and he delivers this performance. And when you see him, how he looks in real life, you see the full physical transformation he did to become Bonhoeffer, and the spiritual transformation. It's just acting at its highest level. And August Deal, precious August Deal, who plays Niemöller in our movie, he's world renowned. He's worked with Terrence Malick. He's worked with Tarantino. Bob Zemeckis, everybody knows August Deal, and he just is so humble. He came to work. He was so generous with the younger actors, always listening, always willing to dig deeper. And the character of Karl Bonhoeffer, the father, is played by Moritz Bleibtreu. And Moritz Bleibtreu, for the last 5 years, has been the #1 box office star in Germany. So imagine whoever, let's say kind of like a Brad Pitt or a George Clooney, works nonstop, big star. We never thought even to reach out to him because of his status. And the Karl Bonhoeffer role is a smaller role. He self-taped, he self-auditioned and sent it into us. And it was the best audition by far. I called him. I said, what are you doing? He said, I just need to be in this movie. I want to be in this movie about Bonhoeffer. And this movie just magneted the right people into it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film, and I was looking back on your career, and you've done a lot of other films where you've written screenplays, and one thing that came to mind is that you wrote the screenplay for the movie Solly, which was directed by Clint Eastwood, Tom Hanks, and incredible story. Doing a screenplay for that one, and I'm kind of curious. You work with these actors for Bonhoeffer, but with this movie. Excuse me, with Solly, you work with Clint Eastwood. I mean, that's a legend right there. And Tom Hanks. What was it like working with, going back to that period of time? What was it like working with Clint for the Solly film?
When you meet your heroes and they so far surpass your highest hopes, it was extraordinary. Clint was inclusive and funny and wonderful from the start. And when he loves a script, he loves a script. And he shot every word of that script. And sometimes the only time they do a second or third take is if the script supervisor came over to Clint and said, Tom left out this one word. And then they'd reshoot it because he wanted every word in the movie. So a writer's. And then the Tom Hanks and I have become lasting friends. And you kind of can't make up how special it is. No wonder he played Mr. Rogers. He is Mr. Rogers. A true godsend to build a friendship with Tom, and to watch him side by side, to watch his artistry. I'll give you this little story about Tom. The first time I met him, we were on a jetway about to shoot a scene where Sully walks down the jetway and gets on the plane to go fly it. And it's very, those jetways are very tight. And I'm only in there with the prop guy who's giving Tom his suitcase, his Sully's suitcase, and myself and Tom. And we're chatting away, and he's telling great stories, and he's wildly entertaining, as he always is. But then the first AD says, okay, we're ready. Okay. And Clint calls action. I was probably 2 feet away from Tom Hanks, who I'd been laughing with and joking with. And when action got called, he made the slightest move, and I mean a 16th of an inch. He did move, but just almost imperceptibly. And in front of my eyes, I kid you not, Sully vanished. I mean, Tom Hanks vanished, and Sully appeared. And Sully walked down that jetway, got on that plane, and you hear cut, and out comes Tom Hanks to the top of the jetway. He did that every take, all through the shoot. This magic vanishing and then reappearing. His artistry is that it's such a high level that he's actually underappreciated, because people say, oh, it's so easy for Tom. I think he's working on some other level. And I know that he prepares. He was so ready when he showed up on set. He knew everything about aviation. He knew everything about that airplane, that he was working every switch to flip, and he was on it like a bonnet. So I was blessed with those guys. I've been blessed with my cast and crew on Bonhoeffer. It's just been an avalanche of sweetness.
That's incredible. Well, the other movie that you did, that you co-produced back in the day, over 20 years ago, was Elf, and that was one my children and I's favorite Christmas movie. And Love that film, and it's something we watch every year together. So thank you for bringing that one to the screen. That one's a great movie, and
You're
going
welcome.
going back to Bonhoeffer, in closing, every filmmaker that makes films, wants audiences to take something away from it. They want them to not only walk away entertained, but for a film like this to really have a profound impact on them. And as the director of this film, when people go see this film this weekend, what is the biggest thing that you hope that they take away from it after leaving the theaters?
We want to raise up a generation of baby Bonhoeffers. I honestly feel like this movie is not about an inaccessible hero. This is more David versus Goliath, one man against the devil. Rocky, this is, at the end of the first Rocky, Rocky lost. Nobody remembers that he lost because he won, because he didn't give up, because he was ferocious. And Dietrich is like Rocky. And although he didn't survive the war, look at us 80 years later talking about him. He more than survived it. We're not making a movie about Hitler. We're making a movie about Dietrich Bonhoeffer because he won, because light wins and love wins. And all of us know it, no matter what our faith is. All of us know it and or yearn for it. And that is the impact of this movie. I honestly think that you can't encounter this guy without rethinking what your life is going to be like. How can I be Bonhoeffer brave? And it's not an impossible thing. It's something that comes through faith and action and paying attention to your life. But it's there, it's at our fingertips. And I hope that that's the electricity that passes from screen into the hearts of the audience.
Amen. Well, it was a great film, and I'm anxious for people to see this. I'm telling friends to go and check this movie out this weekend. It's a great film. Bonhoeffer is in theaters this weekend, and please make plans to go see this. It's a great film. It's a great way to look at history of the past and how one man can truly change the future. So, Todd, thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate you coming by to talk about the film. And, I'm praying that the Lord does big things with this and continues to bless you in your future endeavors, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. God bless you and your family. And maybe I'll see you when you're watching Elf. I'll come by and knock on the window, and we can have some spaghetti and maple syrup together.
Sounds good.